Hey everyone, this is Cedric from Vertex Marketing Agency, and in this video I'll show you exactly how to send events to the Facebook Conversion API using Google Tag Manager. Now, if you've been following our videos, you probably noticed that I released a video about a month ago about this subject, and I actually wanted to re-record it and create a new video because I know how technical and complicated Google Tag Manager and server-side tracking can be. And in this video, I'm not only going to show you how to set it up, I'm actually going to give you my exact setup in Google Tag Manager. So you're going to be able to just download it and import it inside your Google Tag Manager account and have the exact same setup that I'm going to be showing you in this video so that you can get started right after this video. So just before we get into the content of this video, I'm going to ask you that you give this video a thumbs up, and what that's going to do is going to allow other people just like you find this video on YouTube. That's just how the YouTube algorithm works. So thanks for doing that, and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. We release videos about Facebook ads every week. Anyways, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove my face so that you can have the entire screen to see what I'm doing, and I'm going to start by just explaining what is the Facebook Conversion API and what's the difference between browser and server tracking, just to make sure that we're fully on the same page here. So what you're looking here is a full tracking setup. So we're tracking users both from the browser and the server. So the top is the browser. So you have your website right here. This is Google Tag Manager, the web container installed on your website. And then here it's actually your tag. So it could be custom HTML tag, or you might be using the Facebook template. And whenever a trigger is true, it's sending the information to the Facebook platform, right? So like a page view event, a lead event, or even a custom event. And this is good. It's been working for years and still is. But the problem with that is Facebook gives you a piece of code and Facebook will collect whatever information that they want on your website. You don't have much control on what they're collecting, and things like Safari or ad blockers, they're not really liking it. What you're seeing at the bottom is server-side tracking, right? Or some people just call it the Conversion API, but really is we're tracking users via the server and then sending that information to the Facebook Conversion API. So you're still using the GTM web container, but you have more of manual setup. So in this video, we're actually going to be using Google Analytics 4 to help us send that information to the Facebook Conversion API. And this is more of an overview. I'll show you actually how this all works later in this video, but we're going to be using GA4 and we're going to create a server container, and we're going to connect that server container to a Google Cloud project. And then inside Google Cloud, you can actually create a custom subdomain, and that's what we're going to do so that this whole process stays in the first party context. And then I'm going to show you a template that you can download to add the Facebook tag template inside your server setup so that it sends the information directly to the Facebook Conversion API. So I know I just said a lot of technical words, but like I said, I'm going to walk you through the entire process, and I'm also giving you the tags, triggers, and variables you need to set this up. So all you have to do is download that and import it into your container. So now that this is covered, I hope you have a better understanding of the difference between browser and server and what we're going to be able to accomplish in this video. Now let's actually get into the fun stuff. So I'm going to show you how to set it up. So right now I am inside Google Tag Manager, and you can navigate there by going to tagmanager.google.com and just log in. And if you don't have an account, you can create one. It's totally free. So these are all my tags, and these are the tags that are sending the events from both the browser and the server then to the Conversion API. And you can download my exact setup by going into the link in the description of this video. So you click it, then you can download it. And if you go to admin and click on import container, you're gonna be able to just upload this here, then choose if it's new or existing, and if you wanna overwrite or merge your results. So that's gonna give you my exact setup, and it's important that you have the event ID and a timestamp, which comes in the file that I make you download and import here, because that's gonna allow you to deduplicate your events. And if you don't remember what this means, it's when you're sending an event from both the browser and the server, and you want Facebook to either take one or the other, right? Because if you don't have an event ID, you're gonna duplicate your results, and you're gonna think campaign is performing really well when it's actually just your tracking that isn't properly set up. So make sure that you have that event ID. Even if you download my setup just for the event ID and the timestamp, I strongly recommend that you do that. So let's go back to Workspace, and I'm just gonna walk you through the tags. And by you looking at that, you'll probably notice that this is optimized for an e-commerce company, but I'm going to show you how you can tweak it to make it more relevant for your company. So let's actually take this one here. So FB add to cart. So this is a simple Facebook tag, and you're gonna wanna go and open up all the tags containing FB, so all these ones, and put in your Facebook pixel. So go into Business Manager. If you click the hamburger menu and click on Advanced Manager, it's gonna bring you to this page. And if you go to Overview and look at the right here, this is your Facebook pixel ID. So make sure to grab yours, not the one that you see on the screen here. And you can also find it right here in the URL. So I'm gonna click to copy it, go back here, and just paste my pixel, because I'm gonna do it with you. So paste the pixel here. Now here we have the event name. So you can use a standard event, a custom event, or a variable, which is a little bit more advanced. But let's start with a standard event. So if you are not sending add to cart events, or you don't want to send add to cart events because you're not an e-commerce store, you can just click this and change it. Right? You can send a lead event, you can send a contact event, so you can pick the one that you want. If I keep scrolling down here, and this is, I guess, right now I'm talking a little bit more about browser tracking, but I feel like a lot of people are doing browser tracking, still don't know about these things like advanced matching with Google Tag Manager. So I'm just going to cover that real quick. And if I click on enable advanced matching, this is actually going to unlock this, right? So when I'm clicking, we're unlocking this, and you can actually send information about your users. Even if you're sending a not to cart event, you can still send parameters. Like for example, let's say that a certain percentage of your users, when they add a product to their cart, they're already logged in. Well, you should probably have their contact information, or at least their email. Let's say they have never purchased before, but they're logged in. That means that you should probably have their email. So maybe what you want to do is send a email value with that add to cart, which I'm not going to do right now. I'm going to show you how to send user parameter more when we're sending the purchase, but I just want to let you know that this is an option. If we click on more settings, this is where I added the event ID. Now, if you've used my setup and you've uploaded it inside your container, you should have that variable already created. When we're previewing everything, we're just going to verify and make sure that it works properly, but you should see the same thing here. You should see event ID. Now, if you keep scrolling down here, you're probably not going to see a trigger, because what triggers an add to cart for you, or let's say you decide to change the lead, will be different than my trigger. So go ahead and create that trigger. And if you're not too familiar how to do that, I made another video showing you exactly how to create triggers, variables, and it's more like a how to use Google Tag Manager and send standard event kind of video. So I'll leave the link of this video in the description of this video. So make sure to go ahead and watch that if you're not too familiar with the tool, I should say. So actually, let me stay here. I'm just going to save what I did. Now, FB-based tracking. So you're going to want to do the same thing. So you're going to want to go here and then just change the Facebook pixel ID. So I'm going to go ahead and just paste it. And if you keep scrolling down, you can enable or disable advanced matching. I'm just going to disable for now. And more settings. All the tags that you've imported are coming with an event ID, so you don't have to worry about that. All you have to worry about is making sure that you're sending the proper events that you want to send for your industry, and making sure that the triggers are good for you. So for the basic Facebook tracking, which is just sending the page view event, all page is probably what you want. But if that's not the case, again, change your trigger. So I'm going to save it. And now I'm actually going to go over the purchase one. Again, I'm going to change my pixel ID. Keep scrolling down. So I'm sending a purchase event. And this one's enabled. And if I click on customer information data parameters, this is where I added my first name, last name, email, city, phone number, zip code, and country. So in this demo store, what I actually done is I've actually created custom data layer variable. So whenever someone makes a purchase, it publishes their information on the data layer of the website. And then with Google Tag Manager, I'm actually able to collect that information. So that's not something, unfortunately, that I can show you how to do in video, because it's going to be different for each different platform. So I would recommend that you either speak with the technical marketer or your developer, and they should be able to set up a data layer for you. But this is where I would add all my different values to send custom information, right, to do advanced matching. Now, if we click on object properties, this is when you can add things with your purchase. And you might also want to add things, let's say, with an add to cart or even a lead event. So here I'm actually sending the value and the currency, and then I would want to set the value and then set the currency. It could be a static value. So let's say that you only sell a product and it's worth $20 and it's always in USD. You could set these static currencies, but most likely, especially the value, you would never want a static value, because someone, even if you're only selling one product, well, someone could buy that product and maybe buy buy it again for one of their friends. So their cart value could actually be higher than just, let's say, $20. So definitely make sure that this number is dynamic. Again, there's a few different ways of doing that. You could be pulling that information from the data layer, or you could actually be creating a custom JavaScript variable that goes ahead and grabs the information that is in their cart or on the page. So there's a few different options. And if we keep scrolling down here, again, we're sending the event ID. And like for the other tags, you're going to want to make sure that you set your trigger properly. If you're also doing purchase, maybe for you, it's a page URL that triggers that purchase, or maybe it's a custom event like what I'm doing in this video. So it really depends on your setup. So I'm going to hit save. And now here we have the view content event. So it's, again, a standard event. We're optimizing for view content. And we have our event ID right here. And again, you're going to want to add your trigger right here. For a e-commerce company, I usually recommend to set the view content event for like a product view. If you're a service-based business, maybe you have like specific landing page that are a little bit more important to you than, like, let's say your homepage. Maybe that's what you want to set as a view content, but it really depends. Some companies even send view content on all their pages. So it depends on what you want, but this is how you would set this up. The next one you're seeing here is actually a Facebook custom event. So same here, I'm going to put my pixel ID. And instead of hitting standard, you hit custom, and then here you have your custom event. If you want to learn more about custom event and how to send them, I actually made another video about that. So I'll leave the link of that video in the description of this video. So go ahead and check it out if you want to learn more about that. But this is how it's set up in this example. And again, more settings, we have our event ID, and this is a trigger for that custom event. So that's actually a trigger that I added for you. If you want to change it or make any modifications, feel free to do so. But again, this comes by default when you're downloading this setup. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And I actually going to go back to the view content event because I believe I forgot to change the pixel ID. Yeah, I did. So perfect, it's saved. So now we've covered all the different Facebook tags, and that's just really browser tracking. So let's talk about server tracking. So let's actually open up this one first. So GA4 basic. The first thing that you're probably going to see is that there's a measurement ID and it's set to 123. So that's just a number that I put there. So you're going to want to put your own Google Analytics 4 measurement ID. So let me pull up my demo Google Analytics account here. And if ever you're not sure how to get that ID, I'm just going to show you right now. So hit on admin. Now you can click on data stream, and that's the one right here. And then here's my measurement ID. So you do the same thing and grab yours. If you don't have a Google Analytics 4 account or even Universal Analytics, well, if you navigate to analytics.google.com and just create a property, as I'm recording this video, by default, when you create a property, it's automatically a GA4 property. So it should give you this automatically and not Universal Analytics, because those are two different things. So I'm going to copy the measurement ID, go here and just paste it. Now, you see these two buttons here, you want to check them. So the first one is just saying that we want to send a page view event when this configuration loads. And then the second one is we're saying that we want to send this information to the server container. So for now, leave this with this, but we're going to change that whenever I show you how to create your server container. So we're going to change that because this is not a good server endpoint. So keep that there for now. And if ever you've seen other videos, and that's what I was mentioning in my other video, I was actually not checking that because there's a few different methods of sending information to your server. You could actually uncheck this and not have that and just add a row and call it transport_URL, and then adding your endpoint here. And then that would also send the information to your server instead of checking this. So there's, I guess, just more than one way of sending information to your server. To keep, I guess, things simpler, we're just gonna check this and add the server container URL here once, because on all the other GA4 events that we're sending, we won't need to re-add the server container URL. When if we weren't sending that and adding the transport URL, we would have to do that on all the events. So we're gonna keep this on, and this is what you're gonna wanna keep in each of your GA4 events. So first party collection, I'm going to be setting this to true. Event time, so this is a timestamp variable that you now have if you've downloaded or set up, and you really need that. And then here's our event ID. Page location, so this is a variable that you also have. Any Google Tag Manager account by default have the page URL variable created. And then the action source, in this demonstration, we're going to be actually setting this up on a website, right? So the action source is happening on the website. User properties, this is where you could add user properties. I'm going to show you how to add user properties for the purchase event, but if you'd like to add user properties on your other events, after seeing how I do it on the purchase event, you'll know how to come back here and add it. And then a trigger, this is going to get triggered on all pages. So next, let's actually look at the GA4 add to cart. So this is not a config GA4 event, right? So if we look here, it's Google Analytics GA4. So that's a event tag. If we open it up, you can see that the configuration tag is the one that we just looked at together, right? So the configuration tag, and you want to make sure that it's the case for you, because if it's not, then it's not going to be connected to your server endpoint, right? Because the other one is set to send all the information to your server endpoint. So make sure that you're in the same tag. Now the event name. So event names and what they're called in GA4 are a little bit different than what they are called inside the Facebook platform. Because if we look at here, this GA4 event name, it's add to cart, but we're using underscore. When we look at how Facebook names them, so where's our Facebook add to cart right here? There's no underscore. It's just together, but they're using capitals instead to like sort of like divide it. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm just gonna put something on the screen right now and take a screenshot, and what you see here are events for GA4 and Facebook, and you can kind of see how they convert. So yeah, take a screenshot of that. You'll want to keep that in hand, because when you're setting it up, you'll want to make sure that you're using the right names. So let's go back to our add to cart event, and here we have all our different values. And if we scroll down, you're going to want to set the same trigger that you've set for your Facebook add to cart for the browser. Really, really important that you want to have the exact same trigger. So we're going to go back, and we're actually just going to cover the purchase one together. So open this up. Again, the event name is purchase. And then here we have the event time, the event ID, action source. And here are two new ones. So we have the currency and we have the value. So again, you're going to want to go into your data layer and pull this, or maybe using a custom JavaScript variable, or maybe for you, it might actually be a static number. But if you have this information, I recommend that you send it. Do you need to send the currency and the value? No, you don't. But if you want to be able to look at things like return on ad spend, your purchase value, and all these different really valuable metrics inside Ads Manager, you're going to need them, and I strongly recommend that you add them. Now, this is how you add user properties inside Google Analytics, like a GA4 tag. So under user properties, here are all the different property names. So here we have the email address. This is the first name, the last name, the number, so that you can also do advanced matching via the server. So let's say you're sending a purchase event via both the browser, and for whatever reason, Facebook can't accept the one from the browser just because, let's say the Facebook pixel gets blocked by an ad blocker or Safari. Well, there's a chance that they might still receive that event from the server. And in that event, the email address, last name, first name, and all this information would be there. So again, the more information you send to Facebook, the better Facebook is at matching that information with the Facebook profile. So keep scrolling down, same thing here. You're gonna wanna choose the same trigger that you're using for your Facebook purchase via the browser. Now, I just wanna cover this one here, so website engagement, because this is a custom event. So same setup here, and what we actually wanna do for custom event is whatever you name it inside your Facebook tab for the browser, you're going to want to do the same thing for your GA4. So I don't know if you remember, but the event name for my Facebook tag, right, sending information via the browser, is website_engagement. So I want to use the exact same event name for the server. And here we have, again, all their different parameters. So the event time, the event ID, action source, and first party collection always set to on or true, sorry. And if we keep scrolling down, same exact trigger as our Facebook tag for the browser. So for now, we're all set up on the web container, but don't publish your changes yet. We're gonna wanna create our server container. So if you don't have one yet, you're gonna click on admin, and not under account, but under container, you're gonna hit the plus sign and maybe just name SS, right, for server side. And we're gonna click server and hit create. Perfect. So when you're creating your server, you're going to see this. So I recommend that you use Google Cloud. So click on this, And once you click it, you're gonna see it's gonna load for about 5 minutes, and you're just gonna hit continue, and you're gonna need to add a payment method on file. So server-side tracking is not a free solution. It does come at a cost, but if you ask me, I think it's totally worth it. And if you're asking how much it is, well, it depends on your usage. So if you get tons and tons and tons of traffic because you're a large company, you're gonna pay a lot more than, let's say, a small mom and pop shop. So add that payment method on file, and after that you should see something like this. So I'm gonna head to this one here. So you're gonna see something like this, and maybe you might actually see this message here saying install Google Tag Manager, your targeting server has already been set up. And then here you have your Google Cloud Project ID, and click on this link right here, and this will actually open your Google Cloud project. So once it's open, just look at the little container ID here, because this should actually match what you see inside Google Tag Manager, just making sure you're in the right project. So going back to Google Tag Manager, I see that it ends in RR, perfect, RR. So click on navigation menu, scroll down, and I'm looking for App Engine. I might have already passed it. There you go, right here, App Engine settings. And this is where we can set up our custom subdomain. So click on custom subdomain, adding custom subdomain, because again, I want to keep this in the first party context. I'm just going to pick a domain here. If for whatever reason you don't see your domain here, that's probably because you are not verified in Google. So you're going to want to click on verify new domain and then add your domain here. I'm just going to type demo.com, hit verify, and then you should see something like this. You're going to want to choose your domain name provider. So let me just pick this one, and here is going to give you a TXT record. So you're going to go into your domain name provider. So let's say you're using GoDaddy, you're going to add a new DNS record, and it's going to be a TXT record. And if you're using something like GoDaddy, I think it's going to ask you for the host. So the host would actually be Halt, and so you're going to set that as your host, and this is your value, right? So this is a TXT record. Save that. It can take up to 24 to 48 hours for it to properly work. But after 24 to 48 hours, it might be a little bit earlier, that you can click verify, and then now your domain should be verified inside Google, which means when you come back here, you're gonna see your domain, okay? So that's my domain, so I'm just gonna pick this one for now. Now for this step, it's really important that you pay attention. You see those two ones right here, and you're probably gonna see the same thing on your computer. You want to remove them, really, really important. If you don't remove them, you will probably crash your website. I've had a bad experience with that, and I've learned this the hard way. So learn from my mistakes and remove them. Now, this is where you're gonna wanna set your custom subdomain. It can honestly be anything. You can pick anything that you want as long as it's unique and you are not already sending any traffic, or that you don't really have anything at that subdomain. So make sure that you pick something that is unique that you're currently not using. So for this example, I'm just gonna name this demo. And hit save mappings. Perfect, so it's telling me that the status is good. I can hit continue. Now it's shooting me back a bunch of different records. So you should see the same thing if you're following along. So we're getting 4 A records and 4 AAAA records. We're also getting a CNAME, but same thing as above, do not add the CNAME inside your DNS records, because it might actually crash your website. I've had bad experience with adding the CNAME, so just don't add it, guys, and add those ones here. So add all these records. Again, this can take 24 to 48 hours, but as soon as you've added that inside, let's say GoDaddy, you can hit done. And now you're gonna see this is gonna keep spinning, but like I said, after 24 to 48 hours, it should be good to go. Now that you know how to create your custom subdomain, let me just show you how you would go about adding it inside your server container. So you would click on admin, and under the container section, you click on container settings, and it would actually be right here. So this is where you would put your server container URL. So you can just paste it right here and hit save. Now, if you do that right away, let's say you paste it there and you hit save and you hit preview, you are probably going to get a 404 error, because like I said, it takes about 24 to 48 hours for it to work. So right now I did not paste my custom server. I'm using the one that Google gives me by default. So Google's going to give you one, and you can actually use this one and it's totally fine. but this is not your domain, right? So this is actually not first party. You're using a server URL that Google gives you. And the goal of server-side tracking is to use your server, right? You want to use your information. So if I keep it there and I go back to my workspace and I hit preview, I see something like this. If you are using your own server, right, and you, let's say, wait the 24 to 48 hours and you properly set up your DNS, you will see your own subdomain right here. And then that's when you know it's properly working. So you hit preview here, this opens up and it's under your subdomain. Now let me go back here. I'm going to show you how you set up your GA4 client, your tags, and also your triggers. So if we go to client, I'm actually going to go ahead and delete everything so that I start from scratch. So we can delete that as well. Deleting my trigger. And that's fine right here. So you're going to want to navigate to templates, and under tag templates, you're going to click search gallery. And this is where you're going to choose the Facebook conversion API tag. Now, as I'm recording this video, there are two. So you're going to want this one right here because it's actually created by Facebook. So click it and you're going to add it to your workspace. It's already added, so I can't add it again, but you would just click add. And now if you go under tags, you hit new tag and click on tag configuration. It's the one right here. So you can click it, and all you have to do now is put your pixel ID, your API access token, your test event code, and the action source. So we're going to go back to Events Manager, and I'm clicking on Pixel ID right here, then going back right here, pasting it. My API access token, so this is actually located under settings. And if I scroll down right here, so generate access token, click to copy it, paste it right here. The test event code, so if I click on test event, it's actually right here on the right. So this is the test event code. So if I click it, it's copying it and going back here and pasting it. Just one thing to keep in mind, whenever this is published and it's actually live, you actually don't want to have the test event code. This is actually something that Facebook makes pretty clear in your documentation. So make sure to remove it whenever things are live. Now the action source, because everything's happening on the website, we're going to keep the website. Now this trigger right here, we're actually not going to be using the all page trigger. We're going to create our own trigger. And I'm going to call it GA4. And this is what triggers our tags. And I want to trigger this tag whenever we get an incoming request from GA4. So I'm going to hit custom, and not on all events, but some events. And it's when the client name. If you don't see it here, click on choose built-in variable, and you're going to see that the client name is right here. So you can click that, and it's when the client names contains, or let's change it to equals GA4. And let's save that. And if we hit save, it's going to use the default name. That's good with me. And perfect. So we've created our tag that's going to send the information directly to the Facebook Conversion API. But now we just created a trigger, right, that sends the information to the Facebook Conversion API when it's true. But we actually don't have a client yet. So we're going to click on client, and we're going to hit new, and we're going to click this, and we want the Google Analytics GA4 client. Now we can actually leave this as is, and I'm going to hit save, but I'm going to name this GA4. And the reason I'm naming this GA4 is because of my rule in my trigger, right? So it sends that tag whenever the client name is equal to GA4. You could always change that. You could name it to Google Analytics 4, but then also change that trigger. So I'm going to hit save. Okay, so now we're actually all set. What you're going to want to do now is go back to admin, go to container settings, and this is what depends. If you're using this URL, then perfect, just copy it. Or if you are using your own custom subdomain, which I strongly recommend that you do, I just did not set it up because this is a demonstration, but you would grab your custom subdomain, copy it, and head back into your browser container, or your web container, I should say, sorry. So I'm back in my web container, right? And this is the web container, and you're gonna want to go into your tags and locate the GA4 basic tag. And I don't know if you remember earlier in this video, I said that we would have to update that server container URL, right? So this is what we're gonna do. So just add it in there just like that, and then you hit save. And perfect. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna duplicate this tab right here, and you're gonna wanna do the same and open your server container and your browser container. So my server container is right here, and then here's my browser container. So I can click the preview button, and it's going to open this up right here. And now if I go back to my browser container, if I hit preview and I put in my website URL right here, so we can see that everything loaded here. And if we go to this preview right here, we can see that indeed there was an event that was sent to the Facebook Conversion API. So if we go to Events Manager, we can see that we just sent a page view event, and it came from both the browser, right, but also the server. But because we're using the same event name, the same event ID, and the timestamp is basically the same, we're able to deduplicate the event, and Facebook always keeps the event coming from the browser. And here's a proof right here. So now we have a working system, and if you've been following along, well, congrats, you've now set up server-side tracking. And I'm gonna just keep browsing and just show you how things are appearing. So I'm gonna scroll down a little bit. And I don't know if you remember, but I have a trigger that when someone scrolls for at least 25% of the page, it sends the website engagement tag, right, from both browser and server. So if I go back here we have it, a custom event coming from both the browser and the server. If you are sending custom event, one thing that you might want to do is navigate here to custom conversions. And what you'd want to do is create a custom conversions based on that custom event. And I've actually made a video about that, right? So that's the same video when I talk to you about custom events, show you how they work. That's definitely something you want to do because it's not a standard conversions. So yeah, so it all works properly. So I could go through the entire process and add something to my cart. It would show up here. I could maybe make a purchase and then it would all show up here. I'm not going to go through all that because it would take a little bit more time, but there's a few of the things that I want to show you before I guess we wrap up this video. So I'm going to head back to Google Tag Manager to the server container. And I want to show you how you can load Google Tag Manager, the web container, but in your server. Because if we look at our demo website right here and I hit Control U and look at the source code, if I type Google Tag Manager, that's right here, and we can see that, you know, the script loads, but a little bit like the Facebook Pixel. Like, yes, although we're sending information directly to the Facebook Conversion API and we're using our server to capture that information, Google Tag Manager here is still being loaded. And I mean, there's a lot of things that are blocking Google Tag Manager, and it's still not your domain. So if ever you want to keep like more things under your subdomain and actually using your server, you can actually use your server to load the Google Tag Manager web container library instead of using Google server. So that's the next thing I'm going to show you. And if that's something you'd like to do because you want to keep things under your server, I recommend that you actually do it. So to do that, it's pretty simple. You're going to navigate to clients, and we're going to want to add a new client, and it's actually this one right here. So Google Tag Manager web container. And you're going to click on Add Container ID, and you're going to want to navigate back to Google Tag Manager in your web container. And this is actually your ID right here. So you can copy it. You can also see it here. So I'm going to copy that, go back here and paste it. And then I can simply hit save, and then I can just use the default name. And perfect. So that's set up. Now all we have to do is go back to our GA4 client. And we're gonna hit this right here, and we're gonna need to add our measurement ID. So this is your GA4 measurement ID. So I don't know if you remember, but if you go back to Google Analytics, let's say you're on this view and you click on data stream, this is where you can find your GA4 ID, right here. So I'm gonna click to copy it, go back here and paste it. And I can just hit save. Perfect. So once that's done, you're going to go back into your website and you're going to want to change this piece of code here. So instead of linking it to Google server, you're going to link it to your subdomain. And keep in mind that when you're installing Google Tag Manager, you are installing and setting up two codes probably on each pages, right? So there's this one here, but there's also the one in the body section. So if we go back to the installation, so paste this code as high as possible in the head section, and then you're gonna paste this immediately after the opening body tag. So if you look here, it's pointing to Google server, but then here it is again, pointing to Google servers. So you're gonna wanna replace this URL with your custom subdomain. So we're not fully done yet. We have a working system, but it's still in testing mode. So we actually need to deploy our server. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So if we go back to our server container, again, you can always access Google Cloud Platform by clicking on this link right here. So I'm going to click to open it. Now you see this Cloud Shell right here. You're going to click on that. And then it should load this and then just verify that this is your project and right. So this matches your container ID. Now you're going to want to paste this upgrade script right here, and you can find this script in the description of this video. So you're going to want to click authorize. Perfect. So that's okay. Policy script URL. So I don't have one. This is a demo, but you don't need one. If you want to add one, feel free to do so here. Request logging, we're going to keep this to on. Deployment types. So right now it's in testing. If you want to make this live, you're going to want to change it to production. Just like this. And auto scaling, I recommend that you keep this on, which is by default. Minimum number of servers. So this is where it kind of depends. Google recommends 3 servers. If you are a really small company, you could start with maybe 2 servers. And again, auto scaling is on. So if you actually do need more servers, they're going to add another one. But 3 is what they recommend. So I'm just going to put 3 here. And then maximum number of server, they recommend 6, that's what they have by default. Really, really rare that I'll see someone with 6 servers. If a company has 6 servers, it's because they really need it. They're a really large company. So honestly, we could even leave it to 5. CPU target utilization, we're gonna keep it as is. And then they just want to confirm that you are okay with making these changes and that you understand that as soon as you hit Y and then enter, you're actually going to start paying money for the service. So it is, again, not a free service. Is it expensive? It depends on how much you're using it. So how many events you're sending to the Facebook Conversion API, or potentially other things like Google Universal Analytics, GA4, and the list goes on. So you can just type Y and hit enter if you're ready. So I'm not going to do that since this is a demo, but this is how you would go about upgrading the server. So guys, here you have it. This is how you send events to the Facebook Conversion API using Google Tag Manager. Just to recap what we've covered in this video, because we've covered a lot. So we talked about the difference between browser and server tracking and how I think you should be using both, and just using the same event name and the event ID so that Facebook can duplicate your events. I actually gave you a downloadable file that you can import inside your Google Tag Manager web container that gives you access to all my tags, my triggers, and my variables like the event ID and the timestamp. I've showed you how to create your own custom subdomain inside Google Cloud so that you can keep things inside your server, can keep it first party. I've showed you how you can create a GA4 client, a Facebook tag so that it sends the information to the Facebook Conversion API. I've also showed you how you can load the Google Tag Manager web library inside your own server instead of Google server. And I also showed you how to run the upgrade script so that you can change your project from testing to production. So hopefully this video was helpful, and if it was, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you got stuck anywhere, feel free to ask your questions in the comment section, or if you feel like it would be better that you share a screenshot or maybe like a short video, we actually have a Facebook group that you can join. It's completely free, and you can actually ask me your questions there and I'll personally answer them. So go ahead and join that group if you have any questions. But anyways, that's it guys. Bye for now.